All right, everyone, thank you for coming and good morning. My name is Jeff Catlin, and this presentation is entitled Open Networking in the Enterprise Edge. There'll be two presenters in this presentation, myself, Jeff Strande from Target. Anyone else named Jeff is willing to come up and participate, we'll take them as well. There's two contributions in this presentation, and the contributions coming into Open Compute are coming in through the Enterprise Connectivity Solutions Group. That's a sub-project group under networking, ECS group. This slide here is from Tech Week of 2020, when I did a presentation about what the ECS group is. So we're focused on bringing disaggregated and open solutions into the enterprise market. And this picture here shows where the target is for the ECS group in the beginning. It's not so much the enterprise campus, but the outlying networks from the enterprise campus. And if you think about who might have these outlying networks, they could be retail operations. So they could have their retail stores where they might need networking equipment. They may have distribution and warehouse facilities where they want to deploy this type of equipment as well. And so that's kind of the initial focus for the ECS group, is these outlying networks from the core campus network. So again, two product contributions, one from my company, Celestica, one from Jeff's company, Target. My contribution is an Ethernet access switch, and we are seeking OCP accepted status. And Jeff will be presenting an Ethernet switch specification for a power over Ethernet switch. So a few slides on what we are contributing, Celestica, as a company. We have uploaded the specification and all the design files through the contribution portal, so they will be available for you guys to review as a community. The switch is a 1 gigabit Ethernet access switch. It has 48 ports of 1 gig connectivity, 8 10 gig uplinks. It supports an Intel x86 CPU on a COM-E module, so a modular CPU interface on this design. It supports redundant power supplies and redundant fans. Kind of a look at the front and the back, pretty standard stuff. You have your 48 1 gig ports on the bottom here. On the right-hand side, you have your 8 10 gig uplinks. And on the top row, you have your LEDs, your Ethernet management port, your console port, and a couple of USB ports, along with a luggage tag for your serial number information, and the likes of that stuff. On the rear, the power supplies are field replaceable units, and they are redundant. The fans are fixed, so it's not a fan removable fan tray, but the fans are redundant in this design. A high-level block diagram of what the switch is, pretty standard stuff. Again, it's got a modular CPU based on the COM Express form factor. It supports a 4-core Denverton CPU, has a Ethernet switch silicon on the design. This is based on Broadcom Trident 3 X2 silicon. And there's a little PCB board on the top plate of this that supports the Ethernet management port and the serial port. So what is it that we are contributing? We're contributing the detailed design paper specification. We're contributing all the design files that are required to recreate this design. That includes the mechanical files, the Gerber files, bill of materials, CPLD source code, and the likes of that stuff. As far as software support on this switch, it will come with a standard ONI is available for this switch. Open Network Linux is available for this switch. The OCP baseline Redfish profile is supported on this switch as well as Sonic is supported on this switch. Sonic and Psi supported on this switch as well today. So that's the complete contribution from Celestica. Again, it's seeking OCP accepted status. It's a complete contribution. If you are interested in seeing this switch, it is available today. It's in production, it's shipping. We have one at our booth out on the expo floor, so I encourage you guys to go take a look at it if you're interested. That's me.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. So once again, I'm Jeff Strande from Target, and I'll move into what Target is submitting. But first, I think you guys are all going to be able to read this a lot faster than I'll ever speak to it. But listening to some of the presentations earlier, and you hear a lot about like, we need 400 gig and 800 gig, and here we are up here talking about 1 gig still, right? And that's the reality. And I think I cannot understate from an enterprise standpoint, there's significant challenges out there. When you think about like tens of thousands of different types of endpoints that connect in, things like a time clock or an IoT sensor. Like I don't want to like minimize it, but in the data center, you have a handful of NICs and some storage nodes, right? And my team has the data center network too, and that's really important. But there's a ton of variability out there. And the enterprise space, and like representing Target here today, we too want a lot of the benefits of a disaggregated hardware model, but we need help in getting some more hardware options out there and really working on the challenges that exist inside of the enterprise. So the one thing you're like, well, this thing looks pretty straightforward, but there is one thing that is different from what you would probably see inside of a data center, and it's not PoE. It's the fact that we're asking for a SFP or a fiber-based management interface. And the reason for that is, doing management over in-band ports, you can kind of make that work, but it is not ideal because when your in-band network is having a problem, trying to get in and diagnose that is a big challenge out there. And when we have stores that are fairly large, our stores will range anywhere from 150,000 square feet to some of our distribution centers that are sometimes over 1 million square feet, and we have these switches deployed everywhere. Well, today, if we want a dedicated management network, we're in a spot where we have to deploy basically a dedicated switch to do management. And because there's not a whole lot of options, you end up buying like a 48-port switch for maybe 4 connections. So that's not ideal. And so for us, if we could get something where we could do management over a fiber-based connection that we can backhaul all the way into in our remote locations, we'll call them a mini data center or a control room, but they are a controlled space that has air conditioning and all the good things that need to happen. If we could have that, it's far cheaper for us to pull some more fiber than it is to deploy another switch that has to yet be managed. So that's like the material difference, and these are the types of challenges that exist in an enterprise space. And I guess our ask and what we're trying to have here is we're asking for like a spec of this is, a standard, 19-inch rack. We need to fit these into, small rooms that have short doors at times. So we need that standard 19-inch rack. 48 ports is pretty standard. I think if you hang out for a little bit longer, you'll hear one of my peers talk about what we've actually done, and we've got some more call to action because there's a lot of other use case on the hardware side. So that's just a little plug for an upcoming session very soon. And then we do from a operations standpoint, having field replaceable parts is ideal because if you think about, if I have to just pull one power supply versus unracking a switch, plugging in 48 ports, like there's labor savings there. And so being able to just swap one component, whether it's the fan or the power supply, is ideal for us. And so what we've submitted is essentially this concept of a switch. We are open to talking with others of how do we make this thing a reality. And I think I would say it's an example of kind of where we're at as an organization and kind of where enterprises are, right? From we're looking to lay out the finer details. Jeff's got amazing details, and he's got all like a whole bunch of like additional information on how to make something. Like, we don't have like that built in house right now. So we're open to working with others of how can we make this thing a reality, and we hope that this is a way that we can move the overall enterprise life better into a happier place in general. And it's kind of, what Jeff talked about from an enterprise connectivity solutions standpoint is there's a whole bunch of use cases there. And, for us, it made sense to continue to try to push that and move that forward. So that's what we have that we're contributing. We've uploaded the information. And we've given it back to OCP. And you can speak here if you've got any more other call to actions. I would highly encourage folks to get engaged in the Enterprise Connectivity Solutions Group. I know, like, all the new shiny stuff, we get to double every year. That sounds really cool and neat. But when you think about, there are, tens of millions of enterprise like endpoints out there. There are millions and millions of enterprise switches out there. There's a huge market, and I think having more people present, helping like enterprises solve some of those problems that we just don't necessarily have the like in-house bench to do and the horsepower to do. And I know talking about 10 megabit connectivity or 100 megabit connectivity isn't like, oh my gosh, how are we going to figure out how to fit all these cables, right? We don't have that. But it would make the world better for a whole lot of network engineers and a whole lot of companies. So please get engaged. We'd appreciate it. And we're super efficient with time, too. So that should be a double bonus.
Very good.
Yeah, we're out of time. We don't have time for questions. No, go ahead. Sorry.
First of all, is your switch available to look at or talk to you about later today at any booth?
So from a target standpoint, we're not building a thing. We're looking to work with someone to build something. We would hope someone would build the thing we have. I don't know.
Yeah, so a couple of things. So the Celestica contribution is a complete contribution. The switch is available today. You can see it at our booth. It's seeking OCP accepted status, so that's a badge in OCP you get. What Jeff and Target are contributing is what we call in OCP a base specification. So we have a three-tiered specification process that we're trying to migrate to, and that's to try to help consumers of products participate more in OCP so they can write a base specification based on their needs, their market requirements. They don't have to have schematic files and all this other stuff, right? They just state their needs in a document, and then that allows the community to come in after that and produce a product spec. And a product spec, as long as it meets the requirements that are outlaid in the base spec, then that product and associated product spec can be contributed to OCP in one of two ways, as an accepted contribution or as an inspired contribution, one of two ways.
I saw the photo. I didn't know if there was a POC that you had or a mock-up physically anywhere.
The drawings that he showed in his were just a mock-up. Just a representation of what's in that specification.
Okay, then a quick question, and we can talk later. In the TIP Open Converged Wireless project, they now have a project on an open PoE switch, essentially to power the Wi-Fi APs defined by the TIP Open Wi-Fi project. Is there any coordination between your idea and what TIP is already doing for an open PoE switch?
Yeah, I would say I would need to look and see what there is. Like, I'm not familiar with what they've got out there yet.
Okay, where do you hang out after this is over?
That corner.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you very much. So I just want to have a quick question. You mentioned power and LAN, power and Ethernet, but have you thought about wake up and LAN?
One more time?
Wake up and LAN, is that on your agenda or specification to?
Oh, wake on LAN?
Yeah.
No, I don't think. We don't have like huge wake on LAN, like from a physical standpoint.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
So one thing I'd just like to note is with a base specification like Jeff and Target have contributed, if, let's say, a vendor has a product that meets that requirement but exceeds it, it would still comply to the base specification. So if someone had a switch that had wake on LAN capabilities, and it had a higher PoE budget, and it had something max sec capabilities, let's say, that aren't called out in that specification, that switch would still meet the base specification that we're talking about here today. It would exceed it, but it would meet the base specification and be able to be contributed to OCP through the ECS group.
Yeah, that's also a good call out too, and we lay out like just kind of what we need, but we also recognize like if we can get more economies of scale by having some extra stuff that more people would want, but we maybe don't need, like we're open to that as well. We definitely are willing to play well with others.
two more questions, if you don't mind. Number one, I'm just curious why you are asking for dedicated fiber management interface if you can use the uplink as a management, and probably the change which need to happen is to bind them to the ONI to use that interface for boot up if you need ZTP. So that's the first question. Second question is, do you see a use case which is a little bit opposite of that, where the switch is powered by PoE ports with non-PoE downstream ports for data center management?
So the switch would be, so I'll take your second question first, because that's the one I remember. And so you're wondering, would we see a need for a switch that was powered by PoE but had no PoE ports itself?
Correct.
Yeah, we don't see that as a particular use case in our environment. Like you talked about the data center space. I think,
Right.
yeah, from a
I'm
management.
asking in general, is there a
Yeah, I mean, when I think about the management network in a data center, like you already have power to the racks. You're not really going to some remote location that you don't necessarily want to pull power to. So I don't see that from our perspective, but others might. And then your first question was around the management. Why a dedicated fiber-based management? And then I missed part of it versus.
I mean, you already have 4 uplinks which you can use for management. Why don't you just utilize those for management?
Oh, yeah.
Instead
So
of asking for a dedicated fiber management.
yeah. So then we get back to now you're doing management over the in-band network versus a dedicated out-of-band management network. So if you start running into challenges.
No, I wasn't saying that. I was just saying to dedicate a uplink for a management VRF with out-of-band management.
I don't know that you can boot those over ONI and have it build.
That was the other thing. The change which needs to happen is the ONI to recognize that interface as a ONI interface for management.
Yeah.
Then if you need ONI and ZTP, we can use that. Well, let's say 4th.
Yeah. Yeah, that could definitely be a different way to solve the problem. Yeah, and that would work too.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope. All right. Well, thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you.